They talk too much. The foolish man believes control lies in argument, in persuasion, in noise. But true power, true domination of the room, it belongs to the man who says nothing yet controls everything. In this video, I will reveal how you control people without saying a single word, using my ancient, ruthless tactic of strategic silence. If you often feel overpowered, unheard, or manipulated, this will change your position forever. I am Niccolò Machiavelli. And let me tell you, in the courts of princes, in the backrooms of politics, and in the eyes of rivals, it is not always the loudest voice that commands obedience. It is the one who remains silent. Because silence unnerves, silence controls, and silence forces others to fill in the gaps with fear. In this lesson, I will teach you the 5 laws of silent power. Learn them and you will no longer need to shout to dominate. Let me show you a truth most rulers, generals, and ordinary men fail to grasp. When you remain silent, others panic. Not because they fear you, yet, but because they fear themselves. Your silence becomes a mirror, and most people not bear to look at their own reflection. It reveals their insecurities, exposes their vanity, and draws out their contradictions. Observe the weaking. They fill silence with noise. They babble, over-explain, justify. Why? Because they mistake words for power. But the wise man, the one who seeks control, he lets others speak first and second. And often, he says nothing at all. You see, every time someone speaks, they leave behind clues. Not just in the content of their words, but in their tone, their rhythm, their hesitations. In silence, you begin to hear the unspoken, the things they're trying to hide, the motives buried beneath their smiles. Have you ever noticed how a liar talks too much? They don't lie once. They lie repeatedly, nervously, wrapping their dishonesty in more words, more justifications. A Machiavellian mind doesn't need to accuse them. It simply listens with an unreadable face. That silence becomes unbearable for them. They will trip, contradict themselves, dig their own grave. And you will walk away with everything you needed, without saying a word. Even in friendly settings, silence is not passive. It is strategic. When someone offers you a plan, an idea, or an opinion, don't answer immediately. Just observe. They will begin to question your silence. They will ask, "Do you agree?" And if you still say nothing, they will begin to elaborate, justify, and even retract. Their internal anxiety will do your work for you. Understand this: the man who listens holds the power, because the one who speaks reveals himself. Speaking is exposure. Listening is control. I've seen princes lose their advantage in council meetings because they couldn't resist responding. They revealed their intentions too early. Their enemies took note, and like vultures, they circled. But when the prince held his tongue, when he simply nodded, observed, and kept his thoughts to himself, his silence became legendary. Everyone in the room wondered what he was thinking, what he knew, what he planned, and in that uncertainty they feared him. Respect often follows fear, and fear begins with silence. In war, in politics, even in seduction, the first to speak shows their hand. The silent man sees all hands and keeps his own close to his chest. This is not cowardice, it is calculation. Many believe control means dominating the conversation. No. Control means orchestrating the conversation without participating in it directly. It means making others feel compelled to fill the void you create. And in doing so, they expose their strategies, their desires, and their weaknesses. When you speak first, you frame yourself. But when you listen first, others frame themselves for you. And when you finally choose to speak, if at all, it carries far more weight. Your words strike deeper. Because they arrive through the fog of silence. Think of the courtroom. The guilty man often can't stop speaking. He thinks volume equals innocence. But the silent judge, he controls the pace, the tone, and the power dynamic. His silence is not absence. It is dominance. Most people are uncomfortable with silence. They misinterpret it. They think you are angry, uninterested, or weak. Let them believe it. Their need to make sense of your silence will cause them to speak more. And in their flood of words, they will drown. Every time they talk, you learn more. Every time you stay silent, you gain more. Let them keep speaking. You're not listening to their words. You're reading their soul. They mistake your silence for emptiness, for indecision, for vulnerability. Let them. Because the moment they begin to underestimate you, you have already stepped into control. Silence, when wielded by a weak man, looks like submission, but in the hands of a strategist, it is cloaked dominance. It is the stillness of the general who does not flinch before the first arrow is fired. It is the still gaze of the ruler who watches his rivals crumble under the weight of their own arrogance. Understand this: people equate sound with strength, noise, passion, outbursts. They think those are signs of leadership, but that is the illusion of power, not the substance of it. Real strength does not perform. It calculates. It waits. When you enter a room and say little, when you withhold opinion, when you simply observe, it disorients them. The talkers begin to perform for your approval, not even realizing it. The loud ones, those addicted to validation, will start adjusting their tone to please you. They become reactive to your silence. That's control. They begin asking questions you haven't even voiced. They start preemptively defending themselves from things you haven't accused them of. That's when you know the balance of power has shifted. You see, silence in its purest form is not absence. It is presence. A man who says nothing commands more attention than one who cannot shut his mouth. Why? Because people project onto silence. They fill the void with their imagination, and imagination is often far more intimidating than reality. The man who is quiet becomes the one everyone studies. His next move is anticipated. His opinion is craved. His attention is a currency. He may say nothing, but his silence forces others to adjust their behavior. That is dominance. Quiet, invisible, unannounced. Now think of the court. The advisor who speaks at every quickly becomes background noise. But the advisor who remains silent for most of the meeting, only to make one precise, cutting remark, that is the man the prince remembers. Not the loudest voice, the sharpest silence. This kind of presence is not natural to most. The weak seek to fill space because they are afraid of it. They don't like being alone with their own thoughts. So they talk, they explain, they perform, but you are not one of them. You are to be feared precisely because you reveal nothing. Your silence becomes the unknown, and people do not fear what they understand, they fear what they don't. There is no strategy more unnerving than stillness. Picture a duel. One swordsman jumps, screams, flails his weapon. The other stands still. No emotion, no movement. Who appears more dangerous? The answer is obvious. It is not the noise of the storm that breaks a man. It is the silence before it. Likewise, when you speak less, people begin to suspect you know more, that you see more, that you're playing a deeper game. Even if you aren't, the illusion is enough. And in politics, perception is often more valuable than truth. They will ask themselves, why is he quiet? What is he thinking? Does he see through me? That doubt is your weapon, and you wield it every time you keep your mouth shut while others unravel themselves, trying to interpret your stillness. What you must remember is that dominance does not announce itself. It settles into a room like fog. It suffocates the weak while you remain untouched, and your silence, when deliberate, becomes that fog. It surrounds them, confuses them, makes them question everything they thought they knew. You don't need to speak to hold the room. You just need to stop trying to be seen. Because the man who doesn't fight for attention becomes the one they can't stop looking at. There is a particular kind of silence that is not peaceful. It is weaponized. It doesn't calm the room. It infects it. You've felt it before. You speak to someone and they respond only with a cold, motionless stare, no words, no gestures, just quiet. Suddenly, the power you thought you had in the conversation drains away. You begin to doubt yourself. You repeat what you said, soften your tone, overcorrect. And in doing so, you reveal the one thing you were supposed to keep hiding: your uncertainty. That, my friend, is strategic silence. And it is more effective than any insult, any retort, or any act of defiance, because it works not by pushing, but by pulling. It draws out fear, insecurity, and projection from the other person without ever declaring intent. The power of silence lies in what it suggests, not what it confirms. When someone insults you, they are often fishing for a reaction. They want you to flinch, to respond, to show that they have struck something sensitive. The moment you reply, whether in defense or offense, you validate their move. You give them proof that they affected you. But when you remain absolutely silent, you deny them that satisfaction. You rob them of feedback. Now they don't know if they've won. They don't know if you're plotting, if you're laughing internally, the lie, if you're indifferent, or if you're preparing to destroy them in a way they won't see coming. That psychological uncertainty begins to eat away at them. The silence they hoped would make you shrink is now haunting them. Because here's the truth they never teach you: most people are not built for unresolved tension. They crave resolution. They want closure. They want answers. And silence denies them all three. That is why silence, deliberately used, is one of the most unnerving forces you can unleash. You become unpredictable. And nothing breeds anxiety faster than unpredictability. Watch how quickly people start over, explaining when you offer no response. They sense disapproval in your stillness. Even if you are entirely neutral, they become nervous. They talk more than they should. They reveal too much. They try to impress you, soften you, sway you. They don't even realize you've taken control of the interaction without uttering a single word. Now imagine applying this tactic in moments of negotiation. While they pitch their offer, you remain still. While they propose terms, you show no reaction. They begin second-guessing themselves. They start offering more, anticipating rejection you haven't voiced. Your silence becomes a silent scalpel, cutting through their composure. This is not passive behavior. This is a psychological chess move. The same dynamic appears in arguments. When someone is yelling and you remain silent, their fury doesn't feel victorious. It begins to feel pitiful. They start to question their own behavior. Are they being too emotional? Are they losing control? Their anger turns inward. They feel exposed, alone, and still, you've said nothing. Your silence becomes the room's gravity. Everything starts to revolve around you, without you even moving. The louder they become, the more foolish they appear. The quieter you remain, the more powerful you seem. This is how kings break courtiers. This is how leaders dominate rooms, not with declarations but with restraint. Not by making noise, but by making others uncomfortable in the space you've emptied of speech. Most people will do anything to fill the silence, offer secrets, confess mistakes, change their position, apologize for things you haven't even addressed. You give them nothing, and in return, they give you everything. Every word you give away is a piece of your leverage. You think you're being honest, open, or charismatic, but to a trained eye, to someone who understands power, you're being reckless. You are revealing your hand before the game has begun. You are telling the world your plans before you have made them real. And worst of all, you are giving others the chance to prepare against you. This is the great tragedy of the talkative man. He mistakes expression for influence. He confuses openness with trust. He believes that sharing everything will win him loyalty. But it does the opposite. It makes him predictable, exposed, and dispensable. Now listen carefully, because this is one of the deepest truths I can offer you. What is abundant is ignored. What is withheld becomes desired. The more you speak, the cheaper your words become. The more access people have to your mind, your thoughts, your emotions, the less they value you. But when you withhold, when you keep your inner world veiled in silence, something strange begins to happen. They lean in. They become curious. They begin to crave the very thing you are not giving them. This principle does not apply only to speech. It applies to your presence, your time, your attention, your validation. When you make yourself too available, you become ordinary. When you make yourself scarce, you become an obsession. The prince who is seen too often by his people loses mystique. The ruler who speaks too freely to his advisors loses respect. The man who explains himself to everyone loses control of his own narrative. But the one who withholds, who measures every word like gold, who gives just enough to stir the imagination but never enough to be fully known, he becomes the center of gravity. People chase what they can't fully access. This is why the silent man often holds more power than the outspoken one. Not because he is more intelligent, not because he knows more, but because he understands this ancient psychological law: humans assign value to mystery. If they don't know your full mind, they can't dismiss you. They must consider you. They must respect the unknown even if they fear it. Think of it in warfare. The general who reveals his strategy invites counterattack. The general who conceals his movement, who sends out mixed signals, who holds back until the precise moment, he conquers without resistance. The same applies in politics, in relationships, in negotiation. When you don't give an immediate answer, your silence gains weight. The other side begins to wonder, are you offended? Are you calculating? Are you indifferent? Their imagination begins working harder than your mouth ever could. And in that space, you gain time. You gain position. You gain control. Never reveal more than necessary. Never speak just to fill silence. And never explain when the absence of your words causes more reaction than the presence of them. I have seen courtiers destroy their own chances because they could not endure silence. They rushed to clarify themselves. They volunteered information no one asked for. They thought the more they shared, the more they would be accepted. Instead, they became common, forgettable, and I have seen others. Those rare men who said less, who spoke only when it served a purpose, who used silence as both shield and sword. Those men, whether kings or peasants, were the ones others obeyed. There is something undeniably magnetic about the person who doesn't offer everything, the one who leaves something behind the curtain, the one who speaks sparingly but always strategically. Your silence builds demand, your restraint builds status, your refusal to explain builds myth. It is a strange thing, isn't it? The one who speaks the least is the one everyone ends up trying to please. You walk into a room, everyone's voice competes for air. Opinions are thrown like daggers. Statements made for effect, not substance. But in the corner, there is one man who speaks not a word. He observes, he listens, he makes no attempt to be heard. And yet, slowly the room begins to revolve around him. This is the paradox of silence. The less you say, the more others listen for your voice. You don't become the loudest person in the room. You become the most important one. Why? Because silence grants you the position of the judge. When others speak, they are pleading their case. They are trying to persuade, to explain, to assert. But when you say nothing, you become the one they are trying to win over, the one they are performing for. Your silence elevates you above the fray. You are no longer in the debate. You are the one it must pass through for approval. They begin to direct their words toward you. They look for your facial reaction. They hesitate before continuing, because they don't know what you're thinking, and that unknown, that psychological void, makes them nervous. They fear judgment. They fear rejection. And you, without saying a word, become the source of that fear. Do you understand how powerful that is? You no longer have to fight to be heard. You no longer have to convince anyone of your worth, because your silence turns every word they speak into an audition. It places you in the seat of authority, not by force, but by absence. You are not the speaker. You are the standard. Now observe how this plays out in moments of conflict. One man is outraged, loud, accusing. He believes his anger gives him strength. The other says nothing. He listens. He remains calm. He refuses to match noise with noise. And what happens? The angry man looks unstable, emotional, weak. The quiet one, he appears controlled, rational, superior. It does not matter if the silent man is actually right or wrong. Perception will make him the stronger figure, because silence carries with the illusion of depth, of wisdom, of something greater behind the curtain. And people are drawn to what they don't fully understand. Even in a crowd, when you remain quiet while others chase attention, You create a gravitational pull. They look at you longer. They wonder what you're thinking. They question why you're not reacting like everyone else. That mystery makes them uncomfortable and curious. The one who is silent in the middle of noise is the one who is watching. And when you are watching, you are collecting, studying, analyzing. You are no longer on the battlefield. You are standing above it. That is how the judge holds power, not because he speaks often, but because he speaks last. When all arguments have been exhausted, when all sides have exposed themselves, then, and only then, does the judge decide the outcome. And when you adopt that posture, when you hold back and let others talk themselves into corners, you claim that same authority. People begin to defer to you without even realizing it. They speak softer around you. They pause before they respond. They await your opinion, even if it never comes. You become a figure of silent consequence. When people know that you're always watching, always weighing, always aware, but rarely revealing what you think, they begin to censor themselves. They begin to behave differently in your presence. Not out of fear of what you'll say, but fear of what you'll decide about them. And in that shift, you no longer need to control the conversation, because you now control the people speaking in it. Now you understand, silence is not a gap, it is a strategy. The weak speak to be understood. The powerful remain silent to be feared. When you master the art of saying nothing, you force the world to project onto you. Their minds become your greatest allies. Their fear becomes your defense. Their overreaction becomes your advantage. You are no longer just a man, you become a mirror. And most cannot bear what they see reflected back at them. Use silence to disarm, to confuse, to elevate. Let others trip over their words while you calculate. Let them reveal their truths while you protect your mystery. Let them reach for your opinion while you sit in judgment. Unbothered, unreadable, untouchable. You will find that, in the end, the most dangerous man in any room is the one who has already won the game. Before he ever opened his mouth.